So like I did in my last few videos, I'm going to cheat a bit and take relevant parts of my everything known about Throne and Liberty video and play them for you before further discussing it at the end. Continuing with what we can dissect from the UI, I got some kickback for saying this MMO looks tab target to me, but from the UI, we see multiple options to lock onto targets. In the console UI, it even says use L1 to switch targets. Also from the PC and console UIs, we see a target lock indicator on the selected target. And from the gameplay videos, we see player projectiles always landing dead center on the target. And I have yet to see a targeting reticule for a free aim skill. We can see a tab target style circle under targeted mobs as well. Plus, the developers themselves stated that the game uses a targeting method during one of the first interviews, which is another way of saying lock on targeting. So at the very least, this MMO has some form of soft locked targeting, but I am pretty convinced it uses full on hard lock targeting, especially when you consider it has a console version and some form of mobile compatibility and autoplay functionality, which is easier to make work with lock-on targeting. And the enemy target frames as well suggest tab targeting. As for classes in Throne and Liberty, your class is essentially chosen by your weapon choice. Players can dual wield weapons and equip 2 weapon sets and swap between them. Essentially, it is very similar to New World. The max number of skills I saw in the gameplay trailer was 8 skills on a level 56 player, so with weapon swapping that makes 16 total skills available. We also saw briefly a skill select screen which shows 8 options for weapon skills. It might be higher on a max level character. The highest level character I saw was 66, so max level is at least level 70 or higher. Just like New World or Final Fantasy XIV, you can level all weapons on one character if you want, which basically makes alts not needed. Tanking, healing, and DPS roles are confirmed. The following weapons have been seen so far: longbow, one-hand crossbow, greatsword, dual daggers, wand, tome, staff, sword and shield, and a one-hand axe or hatchet. Both one-hand and dual wield have been seen. For combat, the targeting is tab lock-on style, as I outlined earlier when talking about the UI. Melee attacks appear to cleave multiple enemies. Pull abilities are seen in the gameplay trailers. The combat seems to be a hybrid action tab style similar to Guild Wars 2 or what Ashes of Creation is going for. Some abilities, like the Greatsword No. 2 counterattack skill, which we will detail later, have a timing component which gives more of an action feel. Another skill, Devotion Sanctuary, is a proximity-based shield ability available on the shield, which again gives a hybrid action combat feel. As for weapon skills, we have only seen a few details of specific skills. One thing I recently learned from a Nico Tulo video is that there definitely seems to be some sort of rarity system for abilities. Red seems to be the tier 1 skill, and green and blue are also skill rarities. We know this from the same skill having different colors, and from the few tooltips we have seen being red and showing tier 1 epic skills and tier 1 modifiers. I will link the Nico video if you want his full breakdown of it. Getting into specific skills that we have seen 3 English tooltips of weapon skills, and we have some loosely translated skills from the G-Star presentation that Jordan and Society of Gaming were able to translate, and I also have another translation from LeCube on Discord. So starting with the first skill, counterattack. This is a great sword ability that consumes 35 stamina to block attacks. If the defense is successful, damage is reduced 100%, and status effects are ignored. Stamina is reduced based on how much damage is absorbed. When successfully defending against a strong attack, if it is a melee attack, then the skill will deal damage equal to 150% of the basic damage. It appears from the hint text that this skill requires precise timing to be effective, so this skill, in essence, is an action type of skill. I believe we saw this ability in action in the director's preview at 5:52. The second skill is a shield skill called Devotion Sanctuary. This is a shield ability that creates an aura of devotion and allows the player to absorb damage that would otherwise affect party members. This is a proximity-based ability, and to be honest, it sounds like an almost exact copy of the Ashes of Creation tank ability we just saw in the January livestream. That ability was called Aegis, and it is also similar to some other skills I have seen in past MMOs. I have not seen this in a Throne and Liberty gameplay video just yet. The third skill is called Shadow Chaser. This is a dagger ability with a 15-meter range and allows a player to move behind a target and deal damage equal to 100% of the base damage so quickly that only the trailing edge of your shadow is visible. I believe we also saw this ability in action at the 538 mark in the director's preview. On all of these abilities, we notice the rarities and the tier of the ability, and the added effects that can occur based on the rarity of the skill. And those are all the skills that we have seen clean English tooltips for. For the translated tooltips, keep in mind the translations are all pretty rough, but you get a basic idea of what the skill is about at least. All of these translated tooltips come from the G-Star presentation. The first ability is a longbow ability called Moxie Gust. This ability has a chance to fire extra arrows based on wind speed and direction and the rarity of the skill. The second ability is one we have seen from the director's preview. It is a wand ability called Lightning Chain. This ability can bounce to extra targets and do more damage when raining, and rarity can increase the number of bounces and reduce the cooldown. The third ability is called Venom Blood. This is a dagger skill that increases the duration of poison effects during the day, and at night the poison damage is increased. Damage and duration can also be affected by skill quality. The fourth ability is called Ghost Step. This is another dagger skill that can increase movement speed and attack speed when a target is killed with this active. It also appears to shadow step to the target, but the translation is pretty rough on this one. We have also seen a few skills that do not have tooltips for them as well. We have a sword and shield pull, a dual crossbows rapid fire ability, a great sword leap, and a staff stun ability into a meteor strike. There are probably some more, but those are the ones I was able to find. We have also seen some consumables on the bars, and we saw one consumable tooltip. This tooltip is for the consumable Elixine, which is a health recovery potion that is bought in the dynamic events shop using in-game currency earned from dynamic events. It appears to have a weight, and it appears to take up 6.6% of the character's inventory with a stack of 268 on the player. This might suggest that a weight-based inventory system is in the game. And as I said before, I have seen this consumable in the bottom right 8-slot bar and in the consumable bar, so it will be interesting to see if this game has a separate consumables bar or not. So with that out of the way, what I want to do is go a bit deeper on combat. Amazon has said in a few different places now that the combat is action in Throne and Liberty. However, the gameplay footage and some of the NCSoft developer comments tell a very different story. I personally am still thinking combat in TL leans much more towards tab with some action elements in place to make it more of a hybrid combat style. I've already talked in a previous video about the debate about how much rooting might exist when casting and using abilities. It does seem like a lot of abilities might root players in place, but we haven't seen enough to be convinced either way. I definitely hope that there's not a lot of rooting in place, and would prefer for there to be a lot of skills that allow movement while using. We also saw a skill select screen, and I want to talk briefly about that as we haven't dived into that just yet. We know we have 8 skills per weapon already, and we have 2 different weapon sets as we can see. Each weapon set seems to be split with 2 different categories. Might that be weapon skills on the left and weapon passives on the right? Then I also wonder what is at the bottom. Is that where you slot your passives? I have no idea, but I just thought I would at least point out that screen. Then we have the skill rarity system, which is interesting as well. My question is how players will acquire the rare skills. Will it simply be done by leveling up the weapon high enough, or will players have to get certain rare drops from certain bosses or dungeons? Or will there be some kind of other method, perhaps via the crafting system? This is something I'm very interested in finding out. And that is really all I have for the facts and speculation on combat in Throne and Liberty. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.